Okay, it's time to go. So this is the Santa Susana Field Lab. I want to talk about just some of the problems that I'm having with the EIS and the way these maps have been drawn. As you can see here, it shows that the blue areas are the remediation areas for cleanup based on radiological contamination. The pink or lavender areas are based on chemical cleanup. And then the red is NASA cleanup because it's off the buffer zone coming off of one of their facilities. And so when we look at this and we see how much is actually chemical contamination compared to rad contamination, you can really say, okay, I feel a little bit better. It doesn't look as bad as we had hoped. But here's some of the problems that I'm having with the way they're presenting these choices. First of all, they're using other groups to falsify and show that all of these choices are AOC compliant. There was a reason that we went to background, and it was an exchange. It was a settlement. So if you take away the background part, then you need to do a full risk assessment, which we are already too late to do. So one of the things that I have a problem with is that when we go and look at the pink areas on the AOC version of this map, you can see that all of the roads are also pink. So this one would require the removal of all the roads. Now, this here is the building 4024, which is a radiological facility that has not yet been removed. So according to this map, it has not been sampled, which it has not, and it has not been removed. So does that mean that they know there's no chemical contamination? Because my understanding is that there's quite a lot. This area up here, this is the RMHF, Radioactive Materials Handling Facility, and this part above the blue line is the hill below. Okay, so this is an area that still remains and has not been sampled, not one single time during this investigation. We were not allowed inside the fences when we did the sampling, and some of the worst areas are in the backyard of this site where we had radiological storage for decades and decades and decades. Also, I can see that the tank at the bottom, which was also a pond, is also not included here, which it should be. One of the big problems I have with this map is that it doesn't explain anything. I know that this is a building and that this is the nuclear materials building, building 55. So again, this is another example of a building that we haven't even been inside of, let alone sampled. Building, I think this is building 100 and building 19. These two buildings also remain. So are we saying that we know that they're not contaminated or that we know that we haven't sampled? Because my understanding is that they have not sampled inside of the fences of these areas. So I do not feel comfortable saying that we know that there's nothing to do. Over here, this is the radioactive area 4 burn pit. This was a mess. This was a drainage along the rock slant along the edge of it that you can see is radiologically impacted according to their map. And yet in the other documents, they choose to ignore this area. So I'm really troubled by that. This here, let's see if I can get my pen here. This here is the former hot lab area because this is the shape of the parking lot. And I'm going to show you a picture of this area and to show you that they're planning, again, to leave this stuff behind. This is not the stuff that we should be arguing about. The fact that we're back to fighting about the most highly impacted areas, truly I have to say, after my son's entire life waiting for this cleanup to happen, the fact that we're still on the same page of doing nothing. Over here, this is the SRE. This is where the former sodium reactor experiment happened. We can't tell where the pond is because it isn't marked, but I know that the backyard of it, which is this, is where the blue blobs are. And this needs to be handled. This up here, there are still tanks. This is the top of that area, and there are still highly irradiated deep tanks that go into the ground there. So why are we ignoring these areas? That really troubles me. Now here, this is the one that shows the green shaded area. So if you look at what green shaded areas, those are the proposed biological and cultural exemption areas. So when we think about the 70,000 trucks that they're trying to scare everyone with, why are the green shaded areas not deducted from that number? Because we're not really talking about 70,000, because look at all the shaded areas that they're planning to leave behind. So when I asked, and I asked specifically, I asked their expert, Mr. Wandeluk, and he said because they weren't approved, they weren't included. So we're, again, showing a false choice by saying 70,000, that's way too much. 400 million, that's way too much. When it is using numbers that we know are fake, because we know some of this will be left behind. Look at all of it. It's more than half the site that is shaded in green. Now, if we're going to talk about the shaded in green areas, let's once again look. So the backyard of the hot lab, they're now encroaching right on that. STL4, where they had a graveyard of waste, including hydrazine drums, it seems to be ignored as well. And now we can see at the burn pit, the blue area is now covered in green. So that's not going to be handled. When we look at the RMHF, right up to the edge of it is not going to be handled. The backyard in these buildings, building 4024 is still here, and it's shaded in green. And by the way, part of the SRE, look at all this green. This is the SRE. This is the former sodium reactor experiment, and now they're saying that that's a cultural resource. That's crap. That's crap, and it makes it really difficult to believe anything on this map. We go to this edge. Look at this edge. This is called the sliver. This is area 3. See, this is area 3. So part of area 3, this was considered no man's land. This is NASA land. This is area 4, and no man's land is where they dumped a lot of stuff. This area is a power plant, and then it is also the old conservation yard, and I'm going to show you what that looks like right now. So again, this is the sliver line. So this whole area is the sliver. This is the power plant that they're saying is a cultural resource. And this is all barrels, 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 barrels. And let's see, and look at the hillside. Look at this shit. This is what they did. Look at the hillside there. And this is an area that they're going to exclude, because they don't need to worry about it. Now this one, you can see, looks really different. As you can see, this one is the revised LUT values. Now, as you can see, it does not say AOC, because this is not according to the AOC. These are new revised numbers, and as you can see, that is quite different. So now we're going to ignore even more things. Now, I want to talk about this area here. This is the radioactive materials handling facility, which I was assured would be left to the very end, because they had to have a place to store the radiation that they would come across. So that is their reasoning for not opening those fences and not letting any of the investigation occur while we had EPA on site. Now that they're gone, I can't wait to show you. So this is the conservation of natural resources alternative, where again, we've never been inside that building with samples, and look at that. Now we're no longer going to remove it. Not only do I feel lied to, but I feel like this is criminal negligence to fail to point these things even out to the public and allow false information to lead. And by the way, where are all the... You can't see the roads, so apparently the roads are not required to be removed under the less stringent option. So in order to have the conservation area, natural resources, you can have roads and asphalt in that case. So they're just full of it. Now this is my map. This is my map that I overlaid many years ago, and I'm really sad that I have to look at it again. But you can see all of these areas of interest. These were all findings which, by the way, I loaded onto Google Earth, and the people, the responsible parties, promptly removed all of my pinpoints. But there's that sliver There's the power plant. They can see it on Google Earth. You can see it on Google Earth. It's there today, but yet they think it's a cultural resource. So I really need, all of this requires attention. These are all sites of serious, serious impact, and they are being ignored and hidden by the way that they are presenting this information to the public now after so many years.